Today, we're going to be talking about the latest free agency buzz around the Washington Commanders, as we're going to be looking at some running backs and some wide receivers that the Washington Commanders might target in this upcoming free agency period. And so before we go ahead and we jump into it, I first want to remind you to hit that like, hit that subscribe, and follow the channel as we talk nothing but Washington Commanders football daily. And so with that being said, let's go ahead and let's jump into it as we're talking about the latest free agency buzz around the Washington Commanders. And so I got a chance to see this article on ESPN.com. This is written by Jeremy Fowler. And within this article, there are a couple running backs and wide receivers that have been linked to the Washington Commanders. Remember, the Washington Commanders will have, I think, at least about $90 million in cap space going into this upcoming NFL free agency period. And they are expected to really be some big players here in this upcoming NFL free agency. And so within this article, starting with the wide receivers, Jeremy Fowler says that with Alec Pierce of the Indianapolis Colts, he is expected to command at least $27 million per year. Says that the Patriots, the Commanders, and the Raiders and Titans could be teams that are interested. And then with Romeo Doubs of the Green Bay Packers, they did not reach a new deal. Says that the Patriots, the Commanders, and the Titans could be looking to go ahead and pick up Romeo Doubs, as it's saying that they are watching that situation closely. And then, with the Commanders, also it talks about Mike Evans. And so saying that Mike Evans and the Commanders might be a link because the Commanders could emerge as a sleeper for Mike Evans. And so starting with the wide receivers that were listed here in this article and starting with Alec Pierce, I think that Alec Pierce would be terrific here for the Washington Commanders. I've talked about the fact that with his speed, he can really lift the top of a defense. And I also think with Alec Pierce, what a lot of people are missing is that he's developed as more than a deep threat. Like, I really think that he's emerged as an all-around wide receiver. And so I think that he would be excellent with the Washington Commanders, especially since he's coming from the Colts. And the Colts, what did they do? They ran the football there. And I think that because of that same type of offensive scheme, I think that that's exactly what you can expect here with David Blau and this new offensive system. I think that the Commanders are very much going to want to start to run the football to set up the play action. In fact, I believe David Blau said that. If you've looked at the Detroit Lions, you've looked at Ben Johnson and that type of offense, you see a lot of that. So that means that, look, if you're running the football well, you're pounding that defense, then ultimately you're going to have some opportunities over the top. And that's exactly what Alec Pierce can do. And with that speed, look, he's the type of player that he could take a little 6-yard in or something like that and take that to the house. And so very much would like Alec Pierce. And look, if the Commanders are willing to spend, why not go after him? Let's see. Another player that was mentioned here was Romeo Doubs. And so I talked about this with Romeo Doubs. Look, I think that he would be an excellent fit for the Washington Commanders. In fact, in this article, it talks about the fact that he's probably maybe the most all-around wide receiver, out of the bunch there. And I do think that, look, Romeo Doubs can do a lot of great things for you. He is a home run hitter, but I do like the fact that he's a player that you could trust over the middle of the field. I think he's a player that certainly moves the chains. And I also think that he could really benefit from a good running game as well. And so I would love to have him. And I think that when you're looking at the contract situation, probably going to be far lesser for him. You're probably looking at the 12 to 17 million range for that. And I like that. I think that that is terrific value there. I could see that Jayden Daniels back healthy with Terry McLaurin. And then also, too, you've got Treylon Burks. Let's see what else they do in the NFL draft and free agency. I think that this could be a very dangerous wide receiving group here for the Washington Commanders. Next, talking about Mike Evans. And so with Mike Evans, look, here's the thing that I like about Mike Evans. You're looking at a player that is very experienced. I think that he's a player that certainly is going to win when it comes down to the red zone stuff. I think that he could still get it done at this point in his career. And I love the fact that you're looking at a player that has gotten to 1,000 yards pretty much every year that he's been in the National Football League. In fact, it has been every year except for this last year that he hasn't got there. And so it's not necessarily about the touchdowns, but it's about, the catch radius. It's about the little tricks that Mike Evans can really bring to your offense. Now, is he going to be, just the number one option with the Washington Commanders? No. Would he be a pretty good 1B? Sure. I think he would be an excellent 2 receiver for you. And so you're thinking if Terry McLaurin is healthy, he's healthy. Certainly these guys would eat, especially if the running game is there. And then obviously Jayden Daniels has got to come back and be who we know he can be. But still, I like this, but not for the long-term fit. And so Mike Evans, to me, would be a bit of a short-term fix here because he's 32. He's getting older. He's also dealt with a lot of soft tissue issues. So you're talking about a player that has dealt with a lot of hamstrings and things like that. And so that's my only concern there with Mike Evans is that, look, he's starting to really deal with these injuries more and more. And I just think that, look, you've already come off a season where you've had a lot of players that were coming over on the 1 year situation or the 2 year situation, and it just didn't work out because of the injuries. And so that would be the only thing that I would say there about Mike Evans. But anyway, you guys let me know in the comments here what you guys are thinking. Again, I love Romeo Doubs. I also like Alec Pierce as players that could certainly fit with the Washington Commanders, and with Mike Evans, not bad. I just think that you need to start to think a little bit more with the long-term fit, especially when you're going to have to go to negotiations very soon here with Jayden Daniels, who's still on his rookie contract. And so next, talking about some of the running backs here. And so it looks like that Kenneth Walker III has been linked to the Washington Commanders. And so within this article, it talks about the fact that with Kenneth Walker III, he would consider the Giants and the Commanders as options, with the Titans as a possibility as well. Now, with this news, what this just tells me is that Kenneth Walker III, look, I think that he could be looking to secure, a very nice contract, in this next contract for himself. And it may not necessarily be about, okay, I'm in a win now situation. Now, the Commanders, they were in the NFC Championship game just a season ago, or not this last season, but the season before. And so I think that you have a lot of the same pieces there. I could certainly see that if you add Kenneth Walker III, I think that now what you get with this is you get a player that is bringing in that Super Bowl experience. And so I talk about that and how that really helps the locker room. I think that that would be tremendous for Bill. I think that that would really help him grow as a player. And I do think that what you get with him is you get just the home run ability. I think that he has the potential, to come out of the backfield as a receiver. He can get it done. He can get it done on the ground as well. He's terrific with the jump cuts, and I love the power and the way that he finishes. If you need to find anything out about Kenneth Walker III, just take a look at what he did in the Super Bowl, because that's the type of player he was coming out of college. And so, I think that you would get that with Jayden Daniels. You pair that with the fact that Jayden Daniels can get it done on the ground too as well. And so certainly I think that that running game becomes a bit scary back there. Now, another player that is linked to the Commanders is also to Rico Dowdle. And so I like him a lot. I think that with him, he would probably be, I think, an underrated pickup for the Washington Commanders, because when you look at his statistics, you're looking at a player that has got to 1,000 yards the last 2 seasons. He had 1,000 his last year with the Dallas Cowboys in 2024. That was on 235 carries. He had a 1079. And then coming back with the Panthers, 236, he had 1076. And so it looks like that if you give this guy the carries, he will deliver. And he's going at a 4.6 average. He had 2 touchdowns with the Dallas Cowboys his last year. He had 6 with the Panthers. Remember, the Panthers were able to get into the postseason, and I think a lot of that was due to the fact that, look, Rico Dowdle did a terrific job. And so I think that he's a player that if you're looking to just get a thumper, kind of like a David Montgomery type of player, then I would like him. And I think that he's probably going to be cost efficient too for the Washington Commanders. And let me add this too, that, with all these players, I think that they all fit the timeline, except for, I think, Mike Evans. I think that that's a bit shorter of a timeline, but everybody else would certainly fit the long-term build that you have here with this team. So anyway, you guys let me know in the comments of what you guys are thinking. Would Adam Peters take a chance with any of these players? Do you think that he's going to go out there and get Rico Dowdle? Could he go out and get Kenneth Walker III? Is it going to be Alec Pierce? Is it going to be Mike Evans? Is it going to be Romeo Doubs? Let me know in the comments what you guys are thinking. And look, as we always say, go Commanders, and I will see you guys on the next one. All right, peace.